How in the world did you and Hogan initially become friends?
42 years. We started in Memphis, Tennessee together. And I was with my band back then playing. Jerry the King Lawler invited me one night to come by the Memphis Coliseum. He said, I want you to take a look at somebody. I got down there and there was this big giant guy in the ring, bleached blonde hair. He looked awesome. He goes, what do you think of that guy? And I said, King, oh my God, what's he go by? He said, Terry Boulder. And I went, holy moly. I said, man, he's going to be a star. He looks great. And Lawler goes, now Jerry denies it up to this day, but he goes, Jimmy, this guy will never make a dime in this business. And I said, why? He said, well, he's kind of, I know he did. He said, well, he's kind of clumsy and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, but he's just now starting. But when I tell that to Jerry, Jerry goes, I never said that. I never said it. And I said, come on, Key. But that's how we met 42 years ago. We sure did. Then I got in professional wrestling with Jerry. I was managing him. Lawler broke his leg. And we shot this big angle where every week, every Monday night, we'd bring somebody else to fight for me. And if Jerry beat them, he got 10 minutes with Jimmy Hart, right? And so one of the people we brought in was Hulk Hogan then. He was Terry Bollea the first time I met him back in the first time. But then later on, a year or so later, he was Hulk Hogan. So we brought him in to fight the King. And thank good we got a DQ that night. So that way I didn't get to fight Jerry Lawler, you know. So that was it. We became friends after that. We had so much in common. You know, I came from a band background. He came from Ruckus and Tampa background. He loved music. Jerry Lawler loved music. So it was a great combination of us bonding really together back then.
Yeah, guys who didn't see much in him. He was just a big guy who played a little rock and roll. When you first saw him, did you think this guy could be a huge star?
Well, you forget I was in music then, so I thought everybody in wrestling was a big star because I always loved professional wrestling back then. I remember when I was about 10 or 12 years old, my uncle JB used to take me to Jackson, Mississippi every summer. And on Wednesday night, we got to go see professional wrestling. And I looked so forward to going to Jackson every summer when we were out of school, you know, and I just loved it back then. And then when I had the band, when I was back in town, after we did the Dick Clark tours, even on the tours, like if I was in, say, Florida, I would watch Florida wrestling back then. You know, I'd watch the BRISCO, the Dusty, and just everybody. And then I was down in Carolinas, there'd be Ric Flair and all those guys. And that was on the Dick Clark tours. You know, I'd watch on Saturday morning. I'd look in the paper. Oh man, this is wrestling comes on at 8 or 9 or whatever, and I love that. And so when I was back with Lawler back then, I used to watch the local wrestling with Sputnik Monroe and Billy Wicks and all those guys. So I'd always been a fan of it. But when I saw Hulk for the first time, Terry Boulder back then, there was just something special. But I always watched the people. And I always got with Lawler. And Lawler always said, what do you see in him? And I told him, I just said, God, he's vivid than light. But I said, I watch all the people, the way they react to everything he does. And I always, a little later on in the years, the way I judge talent too, I'd always go, well, who's selling the most merchandise if you had merchandise out? And because you can't make the people buy the merchandise if they don't want to. And that shows who's over and who's not over, buddy, let me tell you. And so I'd look at the merchandise sales, I'd look at everything, and I'm going, wow, man. And posters in the audience. When people take the time to make their posters up, whether they boo you or whether they cheer you, there's something special about those people, you know, the wrestlers that are in the ring.
He was one of the most gracious and giving people that I've ever been around. One of the most nice people. You must have seen this every single day.
Well, when they switched me babyface with Hulk for that last year and a half up in New York, we'd do the Make-A-Wishes every night, okay? And Hulk would go out with them, but he'd spend time with the kids. He'd rub their arms and go, you know, I'm going to fight that big bad guy tonight. I need some energy. I need some strength. Let me take up from your muscles. And he'd rub their arms. And he said, look, I'm going to win tonight because of you. So make sure you cheer. Then we'd go in the back and he'd go, Jimmy, get me a tissue. I'd have to go get him a tissue because it would break his heart because he said, you know, Jimmy, when we come back a year from now or 6 months from now, half these kids won't be here. But that broke his heart. We'd wipe the tears off. We'd go straight to the ring. but that's what he was. Also, I was going to tell you about helping friends. He had a great program for a while with Kamala. So one day we're in a room and he goes, Kamala, what'd you get on your check? He goes, this is what I made. He says, man, I got to call Vince. You got to get more than that. He'd call Vince and go, Caesar, let me tell you something. He said, man, come on, we're having great matches or sellouts. You got to get with Barnett. We got to get him more money than that. And sure enough, next week he said, what'd you get? He goes, oh, thank you, Huckster. You know, he got more. Coco Beware got in a major fight with a guy named Jim Troy over in Europe because Jim Troy was saying, hey, hockey or whatever he was doing was tougher than wrestling. So somehow or another, he was knocking the wrestling. What Coco, oh my God, beat the you know what out of him. So all of a sudden they sent Coco home. Coco calls Hulk. He goes, Hulk. He goes, I got sent home and may be fired because of that. Hulk called Vince. He goes, Caesar, let me tell you something. He was taking up for our business. Don't you dare let that kid go. And sure enough, Coco was right back a week later, you know. But so many things like that happened that you never really hear about, you know.
And something that most people don't know is Vince was called Caesar by a lot of the
I
people.
think I went about a year and a half after Terry went to New York. And then when I first came up to New York, he goes, oh my God, are you coming up to manage me? And I said, I wish, but I had all the heels back then. I had the first WrestleMania. I had King Kong Bundy and Greg Valentine. And of course, after that, you know, I had Neidhart down in Memphis also. Then I managed Neidhart up there. Then I had Bret Hart came in. We teamed up. It's the Hart Foundation. Then I had the Nasty Boys, the Rougeau brothers, Earthquake and Typhoon, Brutus and Hulk later on for WrestleMania 9, and just so many of them. I think altogether I had 23 different people I had managed up there before WrestleMania 9. Then I took over with Hulk and Brutus. We shot the angle with Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Shyster, Mike Rotundo, who I was managing before that. I've got to be the worst manager in the world. Everybody I had a belt with, I'd turn on them to manage somebody else, and then we took that belt. So it was a crazy time for me, but Hulk's always been special. He's always been so cool, so good. And of course, we did the album together. We did Thunder in Paradise together, the movies together, his TV reality show together. So he always included me with him on everything through all the years. And, you know, it's just been one heck of a ride with him. It's just awesome.